Thanks for stopping by and seeing what I'm up to. My name is Silky Feather, and you can call me Silky. We are continuing Unfuck Your Habitat. You're Better Than Your Mess by Rachel Hoffman. Read by Emily Wu Zeller. And, before we get started here at Silky Feather's Nest, I would like you to please like and subscribe so we can continue on our journey to a healthy habitat.
And to keep it that way without driving yourself up a wall. Mini challenge. Take a picture of a flat space near you. Counter, desk, table, etc. This is your before picture of the space. Now move just 5 things off of that space and put them back where they belong. That's it. You're one step closer to your after already. What's a 2010? So how do you avoid marathon cleaning but still end up with a clean house? By breaking your tasks down into manageable chunks of time, which we call 2010s. A 2010 is 20 minutes of cleaning, followed by a 10-minute break. The break is not optional. Breaks are important for a number of reasons. Mainly to show that you can stop when you need or want to, and also because they interrupt the part of your thought process that wants to turn a cleaning session into a marathon. So while you might still take several hours to accomplish a task or project, you're breaking it up into workable chunks that allow you to do other, more enjoyable things in between, so you don't get lost in and overwhelmed by your task. 2010s are the heart of the Unfuck Your Habitat system. Every household task can be broken down into 2010s. How many you need to do is determined by the size of the task. A large project may require many of them, broken up over several days' worth of work. One of the good things about 2010s is that you can decide how many you want to do at any given time. Had a long day at work and really don't feel like having to spend a lot of time maintaining your house? 1 or 2 2010s will keep things neater without driving you completely over the edge. Have a room that needs a total overhaul and have a few days to devote to it? You can do as many 2010s in a row as you need in order to complete your task. 20 minutes is not a long time. It requires a minimum time investment on your part, but I can almost guarantee you'll be surprised with how much you can accomplish in such a short chunk of time. It's also much easier to convince yourself to get started when you know that there's an end in sight, and that it's not very far away. Marathon cleaning sessions, while satisfying, are exhausting, and make you never want to clean ever again. 20 minutes at a time, once or a few times a day, is a sustainable way of keeping your habitat unfucked. You can incorporate 20 minutes a day into the rest of your life without feeling like you're spending all of your limited and precious free time cleaning your damn house. When you look at your entire messy, disorganized house, it's intimidating as hell. Cleaning up seems like an impossible undertaking, and the thought of getting started can be paralyzing because there's rarely an end in sight. By only working in 20-minute increments, you train yourself to stop looking at the big picture and to break down what you have into small, manageable tasks. Reorganizing your thinking in this way is helpful because you don't see a huge, overwhelming challenge that would take days or weeks to accomplish. Instead, you see a series of smaller chunks of time that each has a definite beginning and a definite end, and can realistically be completed without making you feel like you're devoting every waking moment to cleaning. A great thing about 2010s is that you can mess around with them until you find the timing that works best for you. If 2010s don't feel quite right to you, maybe a 45-15 is more your speed. People with mobility or energy limitations who can't do 20 minutes at a time may find that a 5-15 works without being more than they can handle. Keep playing around with it until you find whatever work-break interval works for you. I'll refer to 2010s throughout this book, but feel free to substitute whatever your preferred variation is. Remember, flexible and adaptable for your life. That's our goal. It's also likely that most tasks will take far less time than you may have thought. Often we'll put off doing something around the house because of how long we're assuming it'll take. Sometimes you'll find that something you've been dreading and avoiding can be completed in just 1 or 2 2010s. Even major projects rarely end up requiring the time investment that we assume. Mini challenge. Let's give that flat surface from before just 1 2010. Starting now. When you're done with that, take a picture. This is your first aftershot. Congratulations! F that. Effort versus efficiency. The reason 2010s are effective is that they provide noticeable results with a limited amount of effort. Marathon cleaning sessions are so terrible in part because you're expending so much energy for such an extended period of time that it feels like no matter what the results are, they're not worth the amount of effort you've put into them. With a 2010, your effort is intentionally limited. With just 20 minutes of work, you're unlikely to wear yourself out before you start seeing results. Training yourself to be effective without a huge amount of effort can be difficult. We tend to think of success as directly proportional to the amount of effort we expend, so that unless we're working really, really hard, we think we're not accomplishing anything at all. After just 1 20-minute cleaning session, though, you'll almost definitely have obvious improvement. Success! So it's clear that your effectiveness at getting your shit cleaned up isn't necessarily determined by the amount of effort you put in. It may not seem like 20 minutes will get you very far on a mountain of dishes, but I guarantee the effect will be noticeable. 20 minutes can be enough time to put away 1 or 2 whole loads of clean laundry, or to take a bathroom from horrifying to habitable. When facing a whole house clean, our brains will almost always go straight to thinking that we need to marathon it until everything is done, and most people's response to that is a resounding F that. There's absolutely nothing appealing or motivating about marathon cleaning. It's overwhelming and exhausting just to think about, let alone actually do. Facing down just 20 minutes of work, though, is a lot easier. Having a predetermined endpoint to your effort really does quite a lot toward discouraging the F that response. You're far more likely to actually do the work when you know it's not going to completely wipe you out. And that's the beauty of the 2010s. You can do pretty much anything for just 20 minutes if you know that at the end of it, not only can you stop, but you get to take a break for the sole purpose of rewarding yourself for that 20 minutes of work. It's like the perfect combination of effort, effectiveness, and reward without being exhausted and frustrated at the end of it all. Win-win! Mental health and your mess. One reason some popular housekeeping systems fail is that they rarely take into account how real people live their lives. People living with physical disabilities, chronic illnesses, mental illnesses, or chronic pain often find that the steps laid out for them to get their messes under control are unrealistic. The underlying assumptions behind so many housekeeping systems tend to exclude anyone who isn't able-bodied and healthy in every way. But here in the real world, we have lots of shit going on, and it's necessary to acknowledge that and work with it, rather than ignore the day-to-day reality that so many people are living. It's all well and good for a book or website to set up detailed lists of what needs to get done when, but if you're not feeling up to it, those lists might as well tell you to strap rockets to your shoes and fly to the moon, because it's just not going to happen. There are days when you just won't be able to get out of bed, or when you're in too much pain to stand for more than a few minutes. Getting your house clean and keeping it that way when you're dealing with any of this stuff means you need to be able to work around all of the bullshit life is throwing in your way. It absolutely can be done. It's just difficult to find resources that tell you how. And looking at all these lists and pictures and meticulously organized spaces can be incredibly overwhelming and discouraging on the days when you're struggling just to brush your teeth. None of these suggestions take into account the actual circumstances of your life. So why bother? Why set yourself up for failure? Even looking at these schedules and lists can make you feel like a failure when you know you just can't do what they're asking of you. Rather than beating yourself up for not attaining impossible goals, doesn't it make more sense to give yourself goals that you have some chance in hell of being able to accomplish? Work with your life, not against it. Excuses versus reasons. One of the UFYH mantras is, "Excuses are boring." It's used as a preemptive defense against the never-ending number of flimsy excuses offered up for why someone can't do this task or that. Let's be honest, it's almost always about making the bed. And when you're living with a mental illness, physical disability, chronic illness, or chronic pain, you likely have an interesting and unhealthy relationship with the word excuses. So let's break that down before we go any further. So often, people who have physical limitations on what they can accomplish are told that those limitations are being used as excuses. The notion that people use very real conditions or circumstances simply as an excuse to not do housework is a little ridiculous and not just a little unfair. It's really important not to confuse excuses with reasons. Excuses are things that people use to justify not doing something because they don't want to do it. Reasons are how people explain not doing something because they aren't able to do it. See the difference? Saying you don't want to wash the dishes because they're just going to get dirty again later is an excuse. Saying that you can't stand up for more than a few consecutive minutes to wash dishes because you're having a pain flare-up is a reason. So when I say, excuses are boring, I'm really talking about those things you throw out there as justification because you just don't want to do whatever it is. I am absolutely not talking about valid, legitimate reasons that prevent you from doing things. But be sure you're being honest with yourself about which is which. When we start to recognize what's an excuse and what's a reason, maybe we can start to let go of some of the guilt and self-recrimination, to say nothing of the judgment imposed by others that's associated with the difficulties so many people have doing housework because of disability or illness. So before letting yourself slip too far into negativity about your situation, take a moment to really think about why you aren't doing it, and whether it's due to factors that are largely beyond your control. If so, let go of lazy and excuses and not trying hard enough, or any of the other negative things that can cross your mind or your lips when facing the reality of your home and your ability to deal with it. Cleanliness does not equal godliness. There's so much judgment and rhetoric wrapped up in how people view messy homes and the people who live in them. Everyone's quick to label people lazy or slobs, to wonder how they could live that way, or why they just can't get their shit together and clean up. It's not always that simple. Messiness is not a moral failing. For some people, it's simply not possible to clean and organize an entire room from top to bottom in one day. It has nothing to do with their value as a person, and everything to do with the various things that they're working with in their lives. How often have you heard, "Cleanliness is next to godliness"? That seems a little extreme, doesn't it? Cleanliness, not kindness or compassion? That's ridiculous, right? But the fact remains that so many people see someone who's messy and make all sorts of assumptions about that person, about their life, about their personality, about their ethics, even about their worth. We need to learn to separate the state of our homes from our feelings of worth. Having a clean home doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you a person with a clean home. Having a messy home, then, doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're lazy, or disgusting, or less of a human being than someone whose linen closet looks like a store display. All of this judgment surrounding cleaning can be completely counterproductive. The more we feel like we're bad or lesser people because of what our homes look like, the less likely we are to do anything about it. There's very little worse than feeling like nothing you do is going to be good enough. And when this moralizing gets attached to the cleanliness of our homes, we might feel like there's no point in trying to improve at all. There's no motivation to make any improvement if you feel like no matter what you do, you're still going to be criticized and looked down on. There's no sense in attempting any level of progress if you're being insulted and belittled, either generally or specifically.
Well, we did 15 minutes today. I hope you enjoyed the little extra time. I think 15 minutes is a good amount of time for us to do our book club. This book was 4 hours and change. So, I mean, the last one, I believe I did 20. I can't even remember how many shows now. Goodness, I think it was 13. Goodness. You guys have a great afternoon from the rainy Silky Feathers nest in upstate New York. Be kind to one another. Hit that like and subscribe. This was part 5 of Unfuck Your Habitat. You are better than your mess. By Rachel Hoffman. Read by Emily Woo Zeller.